What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Other Side of the Firewall podcast, where we talk about the latest and greatest in cybersecurity news, as well as we highlight those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers, those people of color who've made it to the other side of the proverbial firewall. My name is Ryan Williams, and as always, I'm joined by Shannon Times.
What's up? What's up?
What's going on? Welcome back to the show. So Monday and Tuesday are topics, Wednesday discussion. Thursdays either be Ask SSP or a throwback episode, and then Fridays everything else, right? Movies, books, games, all that good stuff. We're back. So if you were tuned in last week, you did a bunch of throwbacks. I might do that again this upcoming holiday or for the new year or something like that. I thought that was pretty cool. But give me your feedback. Let me know what you think out there in the interwebs. But without further ado, I'll give it to Shannon.
All right, everybody. This article is actually from the Wall Street Journal, and it is by Kim Nash, Kim S. Nash. The title is "Cybersecurity Enters Conversation About Executive Pay." Hallelujah, right? Like this is one of those things where I've often thought this, right? So like the CEOs of these companies, excuse me, they always get these big bonuses for what they do every year, right? But when you see these companies that get in trouble for having these events, and here's the thing, I'm not saying just because a company got hacked, like these guys should lose their bonuses, right? And they actually allude to this in the article, right? Like it's not that simple, like it can happen, right? But if you are truly negligent in how you are allowing things to go on with these companies, like it should definitely affect you, right? Like the money that you make and these big bonuses that these CEOs are getting, right? Because ultimately the CEO is going to make the final decision on these things. Like you may have a CIO, CTO, whatever you want the C-suite equivalent to be when it comes to IT and cyber, right? But ultimately, the CEO makes that call on what you're going to do when it comes to spending money, because it's going to cost money, right? You're not doing any of the cybersecurity stuff for free, right? There has to be money made, money spent, right? So what they talk about in this article is actually tying the cybersecurity to them making their bonuses, right? So it's a good thing. It's not something that people should be looking at and saying, oh, they should be losing out on shouldn't be losing out on money because of the cyber stuff. I get it that there's a healthy balance here, right? But something they talk about in here. So they had a survey here, right? And they found that 86 of the more than 15,000 public companies that they track globally did so last year, right? They tied a cybersecurity bonus to their CEOs, right? And among them, they had some heavy hitters on here. So Johnson & Johnson, London Stock Exchange Group, that's major, and Paragon Banking Group in the UK, right? Which is a big group out there. So the accountability for cybersecurity, that is a good thing, right? And something they mentioned in the article here that I didn't know before I read it was that Equifax actually started implementing this a few years ago, right? Because remember they had that big hack that hit them 2017, 18, something like that.
Yeah, I was around there. Yeah.
Around that time frame. So they've been doing it ever since then. It's been something that's been incorporated, right? So I was surprised to see that, but I'm glad that I did, right? Because then this will make them take it more seriously, right? Because like even with these CEOs making these decisions, I realize that they're ultimately responsible, ultimately accountable, and sometimes they can lose their jobs over things that are not necessarily their fault, or they may not be in the know of. But it's just the nature of the position. That's why you're paid what you're paid anyway. Sometimes a bit too much, but it happens that way. But to actually have cybersecurity be a factor in all of this is something that I'm glad to see, right? So this is going to make them take it more serious, because it is going to affect not the company's bottom line, but their bottom line personally, right? Like you got these CEOs that are making $5 million a year and then they get a $10 million bonus, right? Like if you start losing some of that, they're going to be like, whoa, okay, what do we need to do? Maybe they're going to start listening more to these people that come into these meetings, these C-suite meetings, and say, this is the problem we have, and this is where it can affect not just the company, because obviously they didn't care too much about the company when they were negligent in some of the things they were doing. But when they say, oh yeah, this is going to be tied to your bonus, maybe the CEO will be like, oh, wait a minute, tell me a little bit more about that. You know what I mean? Let me hear a little bit more about this and how it's going to affect my bottom line here. You telling me I can't get my fourth house this year? Hold on, I don't want to hear that. That's how those CEOs get down. But yeah, I love it. I love having this tied to it because it makes them take it more seriously, right? Like, I've always said, since we've been doing the podcast, it's a public trust thing. When it comes to these companies, it's a public trust thing, and just the fact that it's happening so often, it just leads me to believe that these companies don't care so much about that, right? But affecting them with their bottom line, I think this is where change is going to be made. But Ryan, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah. I again, I agree, right? Like, typically we don't disagree on the handoff. Like, usually we're in sync. But with that being said, please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. If there's a bell, hit a bell. Share it to nerdy friends, all that good, all that goodness, right? Keep us growing on both YouTube and the podcast. But I'm done with the shameless plugs. Um, I think it's a good thing. So this is my concern, right? I hate to be the pessimist. Like, so there's a lot of pressure being put on them, with this, right? So like your bonuses will be tied to your cyber hygiene, right? Like, we have breaches, things of that nature. It could consequences, right? If we have issues, there's a consequence to your pay, which makes sense to me. Also, it will elevate, hopefully, the CISO to have more of a say, or whatever you call your equivalent within your organization, to come to the table, right? Because now people's vacation houses are on the line in some of these companies. Their boats and yachts, potentially. But also with the new SEC rules and just regulation in general, pushing towards fines and things of that nature, it's become very litigious, uh,
Litigious.
litigious. Thank you. I'm struggling with words this morning, as well as costly for you to not take care of your business. Then it's going to tie into cybersecurity insurance, because those premiums are going up and things of that nature. Um, my concern is that they start to shift some of this stuff in the wrong directions. So, like, I believe you should, obviously you should hold the person in charge of your company accountable. I believe that you should listen to your CISO or whatever the equivalent is, because that's the person who actually knows what's going on outside of operations, right? Like, this is how the cybersecurity frameworks we should be using, how we should be using them. I also think that the use of MSPs and MSSPs, like, outsource some of this stuff to getting your analysis done, your risk assessments, your business impact, all that good stuff. But as you start to stack these things, right, like, it'll be cheaper for you to hire these services to get the right people in the right places, to making sure that you don't have a big breach that costs you a lot of money. My concern is that we saw in the recent years they like to shift that back onto their employees and say, "Hey, have a nice day," because we need to keep these record-making profits, right? So that's my only concern. I don't want the excuse that, like, it's cost us more money to do the cybersecurity thing, so now we have to have less people work for us. That's my only concern, because that's typically how they try to shed the blame. And again, I'm not never been in charge of a big company or a small company by any means, but just from the outside looking in, they've been doing a lot of cuts, and I would be afraid that they say, well, we want to continue to get, X per quarter and all this cyber stuff, because the disrespect, right? All these cyber things are starting to stack up. So now we have to cut X amount of employees in order to make this work. That's the part I fear, is because at the end of the day, the shareholders don't care. They just want you to continue to make X profit. So it's just how they phrase it, how they position the extra cost, that makes me a little nervous.
So here's my somewhat counter to that, though, right? So I do understand your logic behind it, but the only the only people that could possibly suffer for this, I don't think they would do it at the expense of keeping the cyber people on hand, right? So, like you said, they're going to mitigate that risk by pushing it off to someone else to take it for them, right? Not necessarily take it for them, but to work it for them, right?
Right, to augment it, it'd be cheaper to
There you
outsource it
go.
in the States, hopefully.
Right. Yeah, that's the hope. That's the hope,
Yeah.
right? But so even with that being the case, you may lose some cyber personnel inside these companies, but that just means these firms that are taking care of the stuff for the companies are just going to grow larger. Like, that's the pool that's going to grow larger to where people can,
I see what you're saying,
right?
right? Like,
You know what I'm
you won't
saying?
work for company X, but you'll work for the company Y that's
That
providing
does it.
services to the
Right.
company X.
Right.
Gotcha.
So like
Okay.
I think those pools will get larger because those companies aren't going to be able to handle all that. Like, if more big companies do that, they're not going to be able to do it with the personnel they have on hand now, right? They're going to have to double, maybe triple, the people they have that are working these different things for these large companies, right? Because just some of the ones I listed, like Johnson and Johnson is major, you know what I mean?
Right.
London Stock Exchange, like, they're not going to have any problems with the London Stock Exchange, you know what I mean? Group, you know what I'm saying? So I don't think it'll put, like, the salespeople. I don't think they'll end up losing their jobs or anything like that. But the cyber people, they'll just have to shift from working for Johnson and Johnson to, Vanguard, whatever it may be. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I think I do understand your logic though. Like I don't wish the same thing either, right? Because that's me just looking at it from a small scale to say, oh, I love that it's cyber here, but then you got X, Y, and Z losing their job over that. In which case, like that's on the CEO, and you're right. Like the stockholders only care about getting their dividends when it comes time, right? Like give me the
Yep.
money, like pay me, please. That's all they care about. So I do understand that, and that is a risk with it, right? So, but I don't think it'll be as demanding or as bad as they say it is. Because like even with some of these big companies, I know they're still going to go on, right? But like when you got these big companies that are letting 11,000 people go, like that stays in the news cycle for a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And it could be some
Right.
negative publicity, which again, I know I'm kind of contradicting myself and saying, oh, public trust and this and that and the third. But you get negative publicity, you definitely don't want to see that. That'll cause a CEO to get ousted as well. You know what I mean? So I don't know. We'll see where it goes from there, man. Like I hope because usually I play the pessimist. That was a little bit of a role reversal there, right? You did that, like
Right.
you were the pessimist that time. Usually it's me. I'm the devil's advocate. You know what I mean? Like put the horns up. But yeah, no, you bring up a good point though, and I just hope that that's not what it comes to.
Right. And I think we'll see it come to a head within the next year because of the new rules being dropped by the SEC, the administration's new plan that's rolling out, which I think will be bipartisan. I think it'll continue to grow, right? Like, because we've seen all the other administrations have rolled this stuff to the next administration. It's only gotten bigger and better. Like I don't foresee a shift in power causing this to go away. So I think within the next year we'll know exactly what I guess the market is saying and what these companies are doing um, when it comes to their hiring and firing practices, as well as just their buy-in towards having better cyber hygiene and actually um, uh, being amendable to their whatever respective framework, right? So like it's only getting more stringent. So they need to get on the ball now or face consequences later. So we'll see what happens. And that's not this like this. I said it negatively, but no, it's good. Like you should be adhering to your framework, right? That's there for your industry best practice to keep you and your clients safe, which will hopefully only grow your profit margins because you're not paying for said breaches and things of that nature, right? Fines for losing people's PII. But we'll see. We'll see what the future holds. Like the past 3 years has been crazy. I could not have predicted it. So would definitely continue to tune into the show. Hit us up at all the websites that have our name. Hit me up personally. I'm at RyRy Security Guy. That's RYRY Security Guy. I'm on LinkedIn, Clubhouse, Twitter, and Threads. Stay safe, stay secure.